If you are a healthcare worker, congratulations, because it's one of the top professions that attracts conflict in the entire world. Now, why is that? Is it because of the people? Well, you might think so, sometimes on a certain day, but the type of stress you face, life and death situations in some cases, not all the resources you always need, and not always a system of handling conflict that you so rightly deserve. Well, yes, conflict happens. And so the best thing that we can do is have a system for handling conflict. I like to call it conflict to connection. So what happens at work? Well, you might have a situation, and I'll call it the perceived aspect of fairness. If nobody got their break, most people could roll along, they'd be upset with it, but at least everybody had the same situation. If some people got their breaks and you didn't, well, then we have a problem. It's the perceived fairness of situations that usually causes a lot of conflict. The other part is when people have just decided to be in a certain mood, and this mood does not honor your heart. And so if you call the conflict into question, have you noticed what happens? You push back a little, they definitely push back in some sort of way. One of the most favorite ways to push back is to blame and to turn it all around and call you out on the things that you haven't done. That's called counterattack, by the way. And so how do we handle such conflicts, either very overt or passive aggressive? There's one point I want to make, and it's called the spirit of accommodation. Imagine traveling, say, on an airline, and this big gentleman gets on the airplane and he's got his coffee, of which I witnessed, and I'm watching him with his coffee in that tiny seat he's going to get in. He sits down, sure enough, bangs his coffee over. What does he start doing? Oh, this airline, what's wrong with them? The seats are too small, no cup holders, and goes on and on and on. Flight attendant comes up, as if she was trained in the spirit of accommodation, and she says, wait a second. I can't believe what happened here. I am so sorry your coffee spilled. Can I hold that coffee? Can I get another one? Yes, these are tight quarters, aren't they? She says, I am so sorry. It wasn't her fault, was it? Not really, not at all, actually. But she's sharing in his pain. Spirit of accommodation shares in the person's pain. So back to you. You're at work and somebody is pushing back, and what's our tendency? To push back at them. What are some things you could do with regard to the spirit of accommodation? Totally do a 180, have a different tone of voice, have a sense of awe. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Is there something I could do? It sounds like things aren't going well right here. Is there what can I do to help? One of my favorite lines is, what can I do to help? But you know, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. To summarize, what are the top 3 steps? First step is to know that conflict will happen, and when it does, it's not always pretty, and people do this for their own needs. They push back, they blame, or they're passive aggressive, and this says a lot more about them than it does about you. So to know that that's just the way they handle it has more to do with them than you. Second point is when conflict is happening and you're not getting anywhere, quickly do a 180 and subscribe and decide you are going to partake in what's called the spirit of accommodation. What is that? That's where you've decided to take the one down and you're going to approach this person with a spirit of kindness, maybe a sense of awe. What can I do to help? Oh my gosh, it looks like that's pretty hard here. I'm so sorry. Sharing in their pain. That's the spirit of accommodation. And the third point is to know that you're the leader. Not everyone at work understands that it takes 2 to tango and 2 to get out of conflict. And so when that happens, we can be deeply disappointed. If you can be reminded that most people aren't really interested in resolving conflict because it allows them to keep their position. It's only the true leaders and the ones subscribing to putting the care back in healthcare that will take that one down. So you're using a system, a leadership system, if you will, in order to actually navigate the person over to the other side without them knowing it. Those are the 3 tips that I recommend. And if you do that consistently, then you will probably be labeled as a very caring healthcare worker.